Good evening, everyone. Amongst us, we have CA Dr. Rajkumar Adukia, who is a council member of the ICI presently, and he had also held this term earlier. We had been receiving requests from a lot of professionals to understand the nuances of overview and framework of environment, social, and governance. Since earlier, we used to hear about CSR, corporate social responsibility. Now, this term, that is ESG, has caught up. So we had requested Dr. Rajkumar, and he was kind enough to accept our request. And we know that since it's the evening time, those who are in the office, they would be glued to their office work. And at the same time, those who are in the jobs like 9 to 5, they would be pushing off to their offices. But the fortunate part is that since we are live on the YouTube and thereafter also, the session would be available on the YouTube of Beyond Law CLC. So those who miss it can always catch up. And other previous webinars of Beyond Law CLC, where we have crossed the journey of more than 600 YouTube sessions, that can also be seen. I will not take much time, and we are indebted to Dr. Rajkumar, who has been quite a motivating force. I've been a member of the lot of WhatsApp member groups, wherein Dr. Rajkumar is the leading force and the brain behind that. So I will request Sir to share his insights. People are raring to hear him. Over to you.
Thank you, Vikas. I consider Vikas as an encyclopedia. We can see the books lying behind him. And, searcher of knowledge, sharer of knowledge from the beautiful city, Chandigarh. Now, today's topic, ESG. It is the topic of law. It is the topic of management. It is the topic of humanity. And it is the topic for the lifetime. Till there is a life on this planet, this topic, there will be scope. Now, each one of us, do we feel difference in weather? Now there's a winter, so compared to a winter of 2021, do we feel a difference? What is your answer? Put in the chat box. So I'll see that there is a participation. The answer is yes, there is a difference. And this difference is because of environment. So the three alphabets which are there, ESG, means environmental, social, and governance. Now, what these three alphabet means and what is the significance, why we as a commercial professional or as a business person or as a layman should know about ESG. Now, these three terminology are different than terminology which we have been using, like sustainable development, terminology like corporate social responsibility, CSR. And there are other terminology like global warming, climate change mitigation. So the first time this word ESG has been used, I would request Vikas make me co-host. So if I wish to share my PPT and want to show some other knowledge things, I can do that. So environmental relates that when any business enterprise is doing any commercial activity.
So you have been allowed to share PPT.
Okay. So this terminology for the first time ESG is used by, there is a report of International Finance Corporation. In 2005, this terminology came, integrating environmental, social, and governance value drivers in asset management and financial research. First time, something which was talked about the environment was in 1972. We are in 2022. So this is about 50 years back. So there was a United Nations conference on human environment at Stockholm. And then there was a talk in 1992. There was a conference at Rio de Janeiro called Earth Summit. And there was an Agenda 21. Why 21? Because shortly 2000 was getting over and we had another 1000 years, which we call millennium. So I'll be using certain jargon, but those are very simple to understand ESG comprehensively. My objective is the available time of 45 minutes. I explain the subject. In between, you can raise the question. And then we had a Millennium Development Goals for 15 years, 2000 to 2015, and Sustainable Development Goals from 2015 to 2030. Now, the PPT which I want to share is A to Z of ESG. I'll make it a full screen. 1 minute. So what is A to Z of ESG frameworks and reporting? So what is ESG concept? Environmental, social governance. Why ESG? Why this terminology has become very famous? We can compare with the book of Simon Sinek. Start with why. Why, what, how. So without ESG, the businesses and this earth will not be a livable place, maybe after 50 years, after 100 years. And what are the advantages of ESG value creation? And the various terminologies called climate change mitigation, greenhouse gas emission, carbon credit, carbon tax, carbon neutrality, the green buildings, the United Nations. There are 6 organs, 6 entities which work. One is Economic and Social Council, which talks more on ESG. Then there is a General Assembly, International Court of Justice, the Secretariat of United Nations, Security Council, and the 4 pillars on which United Nations is established is the peace and security, human rights, rules of law, and development. The evolution of ESG, as we saw, Stockholm conference, and then the Rio de Janeiro, and then we had this terminology, who cares win. We had CSR in 2013. There's a Brundtland Commission, our common future, and now we have G20. One earth, one family, one future. There are other organizations who works on ESG, United Nations Environment Program. There is a United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change, UNDP, Principal Responsible Investment, OECD, GRI, Integrated Reporting Council. So my request to all viewers and listeners is please do not get confused with this terminology. If we spend some time, we can easily understand this. Environmental factors, laws, impact assessment, ESG standards, the SEBI framework, the current guidelines, which will be mandatory for financial year 22-23, 9 principles, and social stock exchange, ESG Matrix. So the 3 alphabets: environmental covers climate change strategy, biodiversity, water efficiency, energy efficiency. So the legal part in environmental is the compliance of the environmental laws. The management part is environment impact assessment, EIA, and also how we can neutralize various pollutions which are emitted. Then the second alphabet, social part, is the equal opportunities. It's more on a human side, human rights of the entity and of the various organizations who are involved in the supply chain. So the health and safety, the customers and products responsibility, child labor should not be engaged. So here again, there is a law part. That means all labor laws need to be complied post. And then the third G is a governance, which is business ethics, compliance, board independence, internal audit committee, risk committee, whistleblower policy, internal audit, statutory audit, evaluation of board performance. So governance, we have been seeing that since 2000, Enron debacle, Adrian Cadbury, that is again a very interesting area for business as well as professionals, the independent directors and things like that. ESG, we can also say that there are 3 P's: people, planet, and profit. So people is a social aspect, the planet is the environment, and the profit is the economic value governance aspect. Now, in these 3 things, how does the company treat the environment? In social, how does the company treat employees, consumers, the community? And governance is how is the company run? What is the transparency? So in the ESG, what we do is we do a measurement which is non-financial. And there is also for any auditors, it is not only for chartered accountant, there is a terminology called social audit. So in environment, we do the measurement of environmental impact and sustainability of a particular enterprise, the utilization of natural resources, and how in the supply chains, these aspects are covered by those who are supplying the goods. So environment include all living and non-living things, animal, plant, fisheries, forest. So especially the pollution emitting businesses, the chemical businesses, how they are discharging their pollutants. Are they doing the treatment before they are discharged in the environment? The social aspect cover human rights, working conditions, labor policies, equality and diversity, and the governance is very important, which cover the whole organization. It is a governance for the whole entity, even including the board of directors, suppliers, buyers, the employees, And so there should be a mixed board. There should be different committees, CSR committee, nomination and remuneration committee, internal audit, ethics. In Companies Act 2013, there are various provisions, like in Schedule 4, we have a code for independent director. Chapter 9 of the Companies Act contains provisions for accounts. Section 135 requires 2% of the profit to be spent by certain companies on CSR. 149 section talks about board directors. Certain companies, there is a woman director required. Section 177, audit committee, independent director should be the chairman. And like that, we have other provisions, section 178, 134. So corporate governance is shareholders, managers, employees. Then there are classes of directors, resident, independent, women director. I'll skip certain slides. I have shared this PPT in the WhatsApp group because I want to cover the whole aspect and focus more on environment and social. So the board committees, we saw audit committee, stakeholders, nominations, CSR, and now there can be a ESG committee. And audit committee requirement, paid up share capital of 10 crore or more, turnover of 100 crore, aggregate outstanding loans, debentures. So minimum 3 directors required in case of public listed companies. Independent directors should form the majority. And like this, we have a provisions in section 177. Then there is a CSR committee for listed companies, similar to audit committee. One should be independent director. Now, the ESG, why it requires? Because the 5 major advantages of ESG compliance and ESG framework is: 1, the business will be more competitive. It will be more successful compared to others. Secondly, every lender, there is something called sustainable finance. Like Citibank has committed $1 trillion for, they will give only to those businesses which are sustainable business. And there may be a subsidized interest rate. So the lenders and the investors, there is something called responsible investment banking. And then third is the improving financial performance, the customer loyalty, and business becomes sustainable. So top line growth, cost reduction, reduced regulatory and legal interventions, employee productivity uplift, investment in asset optimization. Currently in India, only listed top 1,000 listed companies requires the ESG reporting. We call it BRSR, Business Responsibility and Sustainability Reporting. And many companies have adopted even for March 2021, where it was voluntary. And for 23, it is mandatory. Now, few terminologies, what is climate change mitigation? Climate change mitigation is prevent emission of greenhouse gases. There are 3 fossil fuels: the coal, oil, and natural gas. They emit more of, carbon dioxide, and 1,000 kg carbon dioxide is equal to 1 carbon credit. So we call it CER, certified emission rights. So greenhouse gas emissions, it's CO2, nitrous oxide, ozone, methane. Now, before industrialization, before 1900 and compared to today, the earth warming is 1 degree more, 1 degree Celsius. And every 10 years, there is a 0.02 degree Celsius increase in the earth warming. So global warming is different than climate change. Climate change is like we are feeling that the winter is less in few places. Carbon credit is an instrument that represents the ownership of one CER. Then there is something called carbon tax. Carbon tax is the type of penalty. Like now in the Paris agreement, which has taken place in 2015. And we had a conference of parties, all 193 countries of United Nations. So we had in this conference 27. So those countries who are not following the renewable energy, whose production they emit CO2, then the buyers will put carbon tax. That means their product will become costlier. And there is a terminology called carbon neutral, having a balance between emitting carbon and absorbing carbon. And then there is a sustainability. Sustainability means my activities should not affect the efficiency of the future generations. So they should get the pure water, they should get clean air, they should get other natural resources. So it is a balance between economic growth, environmental care, and social well-being. And then there are CSR provisions in Companies Act. Then there is something called green buildings. Green buildings is a building that because of its construction, it improves the quality of life of the environment. So it consumes less energy. Then there are renewable energy. So we have energy from air, water, natural resources. So especially in the cities which are warm cities, like in Rajasthan, North Rajasthan, Jodhpur, Bikaner, their solar plant is very much established there because of solar energy. Similarly, in the areas where there is a dam and those things, so we have a water energy. Then there is something called sustainable investing. Sustainable investing is the balance between the traditional investing compared to the businesses who are conscious of ESG compliance, environmental, social, and governance. So the Reserve Bank of India has published a paper on sustainable finance. There will be a sustainable branch or a green branch, the branch which will give the loans only to those businesses who are in the ESG or sustainable business. One second. Yeah, thank you. If the participants want to put any questions in the chat box, they are welcome to do that. So
if they want, they can put it also on the YouTube. Those who are watching on the YouTube.
yeah. Then the whole ESG revolves around sustainable development. So what is sustainable development? This was defined in 1987. It is a development that meets the needs of the present, like our needs it meets, without compromising the ability of our grandchildren, our children, maybe our great grandchildren. And in 2019, it was defined as satisfying the needs of current and future generations, depending on appropriate circumstances of human, natural, and economic capital to provide for human welfare. I, as a learner on this subject, I feel this subject is going to be there permanent. And like there is a saying, beauty lies in the beholder's eyes. So what are the opportunities for a professional or for entrepreneur depends on us. I, as a, having studied the law, studied the accountancy, company secretary, I feel as a law, there may be a cases on human rights, there may be a cases on violation of environmental laws, there may be a case on that why ESG standards were not followed. For an auditor, there may be a social audit, there may be a ESG audit. For a management consultant, how to have an ESG framework, how to measure the environment impact assessment. So how we perceive this subject, the opportunities lies. Then there is a terminology, sustainable business. That means a business which do not harm the environment, do not harm the community. That means one do not engage child labor, one who do not compromise with the safety of the workers. That is on community, social side. The environment side, we do not harm the environment. Then there is a sustainable finance. Sustainable finance is the taking into consideration the ESG, environmental, social, and governance, before making the investment decisions. And there is a sustainable banking, the strategic planning and execution of banking. I'll just see the Sushil Sharma is saying, as a professional leader, you should guide us how to position ourselves as professionals and to know how to navigate the business. See, I'll say it here. To be a leader, I would say become a thought leader. That means use social media to create an awareness and to tell the world that we know this subject. So have a YouTube channel, have a blog, have a flyer made on Canva or Corel Draw or similar graphic design platform and post every day one message on Facebook, LinkedIn, Insta, Twitter. So we are doing our ESG, our duty. And at the same time, the society who need our services, they will approach us. So in none of the code of conduct for legal profession, chartered accountant, company secretary, cost accountants, none of the code of ethics gets violated, procuring the business, the clause 5 for securing the business, getting the professional work through advertisement. Then this we have seen there are 6 organs of United Nations, and the third, the Economic and Social Council, deals with ESG subject. And there are 4 pillars: peace and security, human rights. So the human rights and development is one which takes care of ESG. Now, the whole subject of ESG took the first, it was talked in 1972. And there were 26 principles which were developed for action plan on the human environment. In 1987, the Brundtland was Prime Minister of Norway. So there was a report created, Our Common Future. Now G20, India is a president from 1st December, and we have one earth, one family, one future. And then there was a Earth Summit in 92. And then in 94, there is a body created which gives carbon credit. It's again a very interesting area. There is a United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change. So those projects which save emission of carbon dioxide. So on saving of 1000 kg carbon dioxide, we get 1 CER, carbon emission rights, carbon credit. And we can sell that in market. And those who emit more CO2, they need to buy the carbon credit. Then there was a Kyoto Protocol in 1997. There is a Paris Agreement on climate change. And Paris, this was COP21. Every year, there is a, all 193 countries, they get together and they decide how they will see that there is a climate change mitigation. The first report in 2004, this terminology was who cares wins. Only those who care, they will win. And then in 2005, there are United Nations principles for responsible investment. That body was formed and they launched principles in 2006. And 2014, the United Nations Environment Program, they launched an intensive inquiry into global financial system. Now, there is another terminology used as a CSR, corporate social responsibility. Now, Howard Bowen in 1953, he is considered an American economist, a father of CSR. The difference in CSR and ESG is, CSR we spend, it is an expenditure which is done for the benefit of the society. In ESG also, in CSR, we just spend a monetary amount. But in environment, social and governance, this is measured, more comprehensively. And in 2011, the Ministry of Corporate Affairs, they came out with voluntary guidelines on social, environment, and economic responsibilities. And on the basis of this, SEBI issued BRR, Business Responsibility Report, which was for 500 top listed companies. And then there was an Earth Summit in 92. There was Agenda 21. Why Agenda 21? This was for 21st century. So the comprehensive plan of action to be taken. And then in 2000, there was a Millennium Development Goals, 8 goals. And after 2015, there are 17 goals which are known as a Sustainable Development Goals. I was seeing the earlier comment. Now, Subham Gupta has asked, these norms are suitable for industries operating at a very large scale, and that too in the long run. How should the small industry, especially MSMEs, comply with ESG, and what steps can be taken in this regard? And then ESG and CSR has been mandated under Section 135 of the Companies Act, but not in other legislations and business organization. How should they be made liable again, considering the most of the small businesses? Very good question, Subhamji. Now, answer to this is that once there is an awareness by the buyers, by the lenders, now by that awareness, every business, say on a product, if somebody writes, like say take a mobile phone, if a manufacturer writes, that they have complied the ESG framework, or in the annual report, there is a ESG report. So in stock exchange, the market price of such a company will be more. And from the buyer's perspective, the products which will have a ESG framework compliance, there will be a more demand for those products. That is the way this awareness will come. And maybe slowly in other legislations, also this will be included. So any movement is a progressive movement. This awareness itself is a good awareness. When the shareholders read about, say, a large listed company report that about ESG, when the bankers see that ESG, like recently there was a seminar organized by Indian Bank Association, and I had an opportunity to address that. The Reserve Bank of India coming out with a paper on sustainable financing. So this will grow, compliance will grow. Then Sanjay Rikhi is, how do we draw and develop attention of the business world towards ESG? Once we, the top advantages of ESG is there will be increase of the profit, there will be, the employees' productivity will increase because employees are taken care of in terms of the safety and health conditions, the security given to them. Then Sanjay had another question. Do we see risk assessment framework considering ESG can be a good beginning to relate any business house to that risk? Now see, risk management, risk framework is a part of governance. In the governance, we have a risk management, we have internal control, uh, internal audit. So, of course, the risk management, where there is a good risk management, the investor will invest in the stock of that company. Manoj Kamra has put a question, what are the activities which are permissible under CSR fund? You know, CSR fund can spend on those activities which are in the Schedule 7 of the Companies Act. So these are, you know, eradicating hunger, promoting education, promoting gender equality, environmental sustainability, national heritage, then contribution to certain funds like Central Armed Forces Fund, then training for rural sports, then contribution to certain funds, Prime Minister's National Relief Fund, like we had PM Care Fund. So the contribution to the incubator for research, slum rural development. So these are the various, there are 12 activities in 7th schedule. There are 7 schedules only in the Companies Act, which then Subham has asked a question, most practicable solution to sensitize the industry. However, I suggest that government, especially the state, give a wake-up call to enforce the pollution control norms. Yes, it will happen, Subhamji. I'll share the rest of the PPT. The 17 Sustainable Development Goals, which are currently, we are in 2022 ending. So till 2030, each country is supposed to work on this. We may not achieve 100% result. So the first goal is that every citizen is above the poverty line. Nobody should sleep hungry, no hunger, zero hunger, good health and well-being, quality education, gender equality. In fact, all these 17 SDG, if we see the Schedule 7 of the Companies Act, they are included there. So clean water and sanitation, that is the 6th goal. 7th is the affordable and clean energy. 8th is the decent work and economic growth. 9th is the industry, innovation and infrastructure. Then reduced inequalities. 11th is sustainable cities and communities. 12th is the responsible consumption and production. There is a new terminology called circular economy compared to the linear economy. The linear economy is we buy the product, we use it and we discard it. Circular economy is the manufacturer takes back that product and they find out whether there is any part which is usable, that part they will use, and the rest of the things they will recycle. So responsible consumption and production, then climate action is the 13th goal. 14th is the life below water. 15th is life on land. 16th is the peace, justice and strong institutions. And 17th is, the countries may come together to achieve these goals. Then, I have put little bit about Economic and Social Council. This was established in 1945 when the United Nations was established. And India is also member since 2020. And then there is a United Nations climate change. There is a COP27 is the 27th conference which was held in November in Sharm el Sheikh. This is the name of the city in Egypt. And the next will be, the venue is not decided. Then the principles on responsible investment is only those businesses who will have ESG compliance, there will be active owners, there will be a disclosures on ESG, they will promote the principles within the industry, they will enhance effectiveness, and they will report on the activities and progress towards these principles. OECD also has worked on ESG. So ESG Investing, climate transitions, they have given the report on that. CA AK Ghosh, he has asked a question. There is a difference between European American CSR concept and our Indian CSR concept. See the difference, there is no difference in the CSR. The whole meaning of the CSR is that the business has a responsibilities toward the society. Like I read out what is there in the 7th schedule of the Companies Act. And if we look at, I also gave a example of what is in the Sustainable Development Goals. So the whole CSR revolves around the life below earth, life on earth, and below water, the environment. So there are environmental factors like temperature, air transmission, humidity. And those who want to become expert in ESG, all this terminology, all this science, those who are from a non-science background also can be learned easily. For a legal professionals on environment, there are many laws which will their compliance. You know, there is a National Green Tribunal which handles the environmental cases. There is a compliance under Environment Protection Act, under Energy Conservation Act. There is an energy audit required for certain businesses. There is a Air Control of Pollution Act 81, Water 1974. Then there is something called environmental impact assessment. So what this tool is used, you know, before a project is set up. So like, you know, Enron, when it came to India, or like what happened in Union Carbide in Bhopal. If today this would have happened, you know, the Union Carbide would have gone out of existence in the whole world. Then there are ESG ratings. There are rating agencies who give the rating AAA, AA, A. Then there is an environmental score like carbon emissions, what is the product carbon footprint, financing environmental impact, climate change vulnerability, then water sourcing, biodiversity and land use, raw material sourcing. There's an environmental score uh, for pollution and waste category, toxic emissions and waste, packaging material, electronic waste. Then environmental opportunities, clean technology, green building, renewable energy. In human social score, how labor is managed, the health and safety practices, worker training, what are the labor standards in supply chain, those who are supplying the raw materials to us. Then product liability, product safety and quality, chemical safety, consumer financial protection, privacy and data security, responsible investing, stakeholder. Sanjay has asked, can we not enlist various laws under the umbrella of ESG so that it becomes easy to familiarize the industry and business towards ESG? Yes, Sanjay, we can do, because in E, those are the environment laws. In S, these are more of a labor laws and human rights laws. And in the governance, these are the laws pertaining to internal control, audit committee, independent directors, the performance of the board of directors, performance of the each director. So there are many reports in those areas. And, Section 447 in Companies Act is a very salutary provision. Anyone who do not disclose an information or who is duty bound, the penalty is 3 times the amount involved, like what it is in FEMA or other legislations. Then social opportunities are access to communication, access to finance, access to healthcare. The governance score, composition of the board in terms of diversity and independence, executive compensation, ownership, accounting practices, business ethics, transparency. And there is something called, ESG Matrix. So in environmental pillar, how the climate change is dealt with, natural resources, carbon emissions, water. In social pillar, what is the labor management, chemical safety, human capital development, access to healthcare. And similarly, governance pillar, board diversity, executive pay, ownership, accounting, corruption. Manoj Kamra is saying whether CSR funds are in the public domain. Can we access CSR fund invested of any company under Companies Act? Yes, Manoj. I'll just very quickly show the how. Then ESG score. Then SEBI has in LODR, listing obligations and disclosure requirements. There is a formats for compliance report. Then there are various international frameworks like GRI, European Financial Reporting Advisory Group. There are Sustainability Accounting Standards Board, Task Force on Climate, so related financial disclosures. I just wanted to the question which has come from Manoj, about CSR funds, CSR as well as, those who are so, top 20 companies with CSR fund in India, there is a national CSR portal. So depending on, so like in 2021, 18,000 crore, 18,000 companies were in this segment. In 1920, 25,000 crore was spent on CSR. So the Google Baba is various information which one wants will be available. There is something called 1 hour investing. God has given us 24 hours. And if we spend 1 hour every day on whatever thing which we want to learn, we can do wonder. Now, this is a current reporting for top 1,000 companies. We call it BRSR, Business Responsibility and Sustainability Report. General Section A is general disclosures, the detail of the company, product, and Section B is a management and process disclosures, and Section C is there are 9 principles. Now, I would like to take questions. I could have gone through these 9 principles, but I would appreciate if there are more questions. Mr. Vikas, we can discuss
think,
till
sir,
the time.
Those who had already posted on the thing, if anybody wants a fresh question to be posted, we are more than happy to take those questions. But after your session, I think that a lot of people would understand as to, otherwise also we say that as a responsible citizen also, you should be environmental friendly, socially responsible, and governance free. How to do a better governance, not only within the company, within the society as such. And as you said that one has to try to improve daily, I'm reminded of the famous book of the Atomic Habits by James Clear, which said that every time you do something, and how beautifully he explains that a small change in the mindset, small change in the habit helps you to improve better. I would say I'm taking cue from what Dr. Rajkumar had said, that one should read that book, Atomic Habits by James Clear. It's a wonderful book, though it goes akin to what his name is, to the effect that he says clear. I think that if you read that book, the clarity of thoughts, clarity of mind, and clarity of mindset would definitely be there. And once you know people like Dr. Rajkumar, I'm quite sure that your skill sets and mindsets would automatically improve to a level of a different point. And so thank you, friends, for staying connected with us. And we would be happy in this knowledge sharing with all the professionals of the stature of Dr. Rajkumar, who has, despite the busy schedule, his passion to pay back to the society is what makes him move forward. And what we say that if you have some name, I would say, though his parents thought of Rajkumar, but for us, he's a king, and he will continue to remain the king of hearts. Thank you, everyone.